Welcome to the Coopersmith Career Consulting Study Guide Series, English Composition 1. I am Dr. Sari Rosenberg, and I will be walking you through the restaurant review. This is again our tutorial for the critical review of a restaurant. Let's analyze your assignment. You've been asked by your instructor to choose a restaurant you know well and have visited several times, or a movie you have seen at least twice, or a book you have read. It is my recommendation that you focus in on the restaurant and not on the movie or a book, and the reason being that movie reviews tend to be more plot summary and book reviews tend to be more book report in nature. Restaurant review from the students that we have seen so far have been the most successful in doing this assignment. There are many ways for you to research on the web on how to do a restaurant review, although we will be making some suggestions here right now. Make sure you clearly pass judgment in the introductory paragraph, and then make sure you write an explicitly clear sentence at the beginning of each body paragraph that strongly supports and illustrates your thesis statement. Keep your tone authoritative, keep the sentences crisp and clear, eliminate all passive voice, add transitions, and a minimum length for this assignment is 250 words. I will explain all of this in detail as we move along. Understanding the assignment. Understanding the audience. The first step to writing is to understand your audience. Who are you trying to appeal to? Who's reading this? It's never about what you want to say, but it's about how others are interpreting your words. So let's look at some inadequate statements. Simple statements and simple explanations without support don't work to an audience because they have no idea what you're talking about. Example: I go to this restaurant frequently because the food and service are amazing. It is an experience one would welcome with great enthusiasm, as stuff and muffins is unsurpassed. I see a lot of this, and so does our grader. And the problem with that are the words frequently, because we don't know how often that is. Amazing, I don't know what amazing is. Great enthusiasm, I don't even know what that is. And unsurpassed is, I don't know what that. All these words are philosophical in nature, they're emotional, but what they're not are something concrete they're called fluff words, to let the audience know why is it that you find it to be amazing. What is it about going there that makes it? Always write in words that are physical. It's the comfortable chairs. It's the smile on the waitress's face that I look at. I go, what for some people are frequently, some people go out twice a year and that's frequently. Some people go out twice a month. Some people go out every day. None of these sentences are specific enough to give the audience a clear understanding of what your experience was and why you liked it. We know obviously that you did like this place, but what we don't know is why, and that's what's important in a restaurant review, because you're trying to convince the audience that they would like it as well. And telling them that they're going to be as happy as you are is not what this is about. It's about being very, very specific and speaking in terms that are physical, that touch the five senses. Understanding the audience. Engage your audience. Example, and here's an example of something that you would put in. There was a rustic atmosphere to the room. The walls were a deep shade of orange-red. The ceiling and parts of the walls were cabin-like, and circular lamps hung from the ceiling, lighting the place only dimly. This paints a picture in the mind of the audience of what the room looked like, and that's your goal. See the subject from multiple perspectives. Example: the nicely folded red napkins only added to the redness. I believe the designers intended to create a fiery dragon-like sensation as displayed on their logo, yet all the color did not distract me from the actual sushi experience. What's important to see here, and why it's called multiple perspectives, what this author did very so subtly was to put in Yet all the color did not distract me from the actual sushi experience. For some people, they might find that distracting, and that's what gives it a different perspective. Use clear, direct, and forceful writing. Example: the waitress was patient and friendly as she answered all my questions. Meaning, I asked a lot of questions that would make the waitress sometimes lose patience, but this waitress did not. The writer's voice. You are asked to write a restaurant review based on personal experience. Goal: identify in specific words your perception and opinion of the restaurant. You must have participated and experienced in this event. Let me explain. A person can only write from that which they know. So whether or not they have, in this specific case, a person would have gone to the restaurant. And recently, you cannot write about a restaurant if you're in Israel for a year. Writing about a restaurant back at home that you may have gone to 2 years ago, because your memory is not going to be that bold, and you're not going to be able to write from a physical perspective in descriptive terms what that whole experience was like. And you also have to have tasted the food yourself. You can't go to a restaurant with your sister or your brother or your mother, your father, and then say to them, well, how do you like, the steak? Because their perspective and their description is going to, and their taste is going to be very different from you writing it from your own experience. So the writer themselves has to be the one to have experienced this whole event. Credibility is defined in one sentence. Lets the audience know who you are. For this assignment, you may write in first person. You are the person, and normally we don't have in college level writing a person writing from using the word I. However, in this case, because you are writing from your experience, you are allowed to use the first person. Write a focus statement, and this goes again into the writer's voice. Understanding in the writer's voice who you are, because that's going to be very, very important to the audience. Your credibility defined. Why is it that you didn't like the sushi? Well, maybe you just never liked fish, or you don't like sushi, and you're going out there and tasting it. Well, if we know beforehand that you don't like it, that's going to be something that you're telling your audience. Example: Sari Rosenberg, 34-year-old mother of 2 with a budget of $20, will be eating a Tuesday lunch at Chai Pizza with her 18-month-old toddler in Muncie, New York, in order to write a restaurant review of her dining experience. Well, let's take a look at Sari Rosenberg if she were a 50-year-old secretary and student, spends her Tuesday lunch hour writing a restaurant review of her dining experience at Chai Pizza because it is the closest restaurant to her office and she can stay within a budget of $40 for the assignment. It is extremely important that you create this sentence for yourself before you write or even go to the restaurant, and I'll tell you why. This statement is for you. The audience never sees it, but what it does is keep you grounded and solid in telling the audience exactly who you are and the perspective that you're coming from. Sari Rosenberg, who's a 34-year-old mother of 2, who's on a very small budget and going with an 18-month-old child to the same restaurant at the same time as a person who's this 50-year-old example, are going to evaluate the restaurant from 2 very, very different perspectives. And that's why it's important that you bring who you are into the essay, so that the audience knows, well, maybe you didn't have a chance to concentrate on the food because your toddler was running up and back. Or maybe you were losing patience with how slow the order was coming in because you were on the clock to get all of this done in an hour. So by giving that information, that's your voice. By giving that information over and telling that to the audience, Eventually, within that first paragraph, number one, your audience knows exactly who you are. But when you write this out beforehand, as you're writing, it keeps you focused on who you are so you don't lose track. The following is direct information on how to write reviews taken from various websites found on the internet. Each site is named, and feel free to go to each site for further information. I think what you should do is when you go to the restaurant, and this you should taste as many things as you can on the menu. Give the details about the texture, the taste, the smell, the feel to the food. That again is using all of your five senses. 2. Consider how you will record the experience. Before you go, take along a pad. Write all of this down. Try to remember all the details well and write them up as soon as possible after you leave if you're not writing them up as you go. My best suggestion to you is take some paper, take a pad, and write it down so that you have your notes. Assess the table setup before you begin the meal. How was the table set? Was it set before you sat down? Was it clean or dirty on arrival? Now, sometimes you're not going to be sitting in a restaurant that has that kind of table setting. Sometimes you'll just go to your local pizza store, or you'll go get a cup of coffee somewhere. What you're going to be doing in that scenario is finding out, does the table feel greasy if there's not a tablecloth on it? Is there food left over from the person before? Is there food on the floor? Dirty napkins around you? These are the assessments that you will make as well. Order food that gives as broad an experience as possible of the menu in front of you. Look for a range of textures, tastes, styles, and levels of difficulty to try. If you're in a pizza store, don't order only pizza. Try something else that you've never tried before. Use your five senses and convey to your audience, always keep it about your audience, convey to your audience in descriptive words what the food tasted like to use. Assess the food as you consume it. Things to consider include the presentation, clean, beautiful, or messy and tired, the temperature, was the meal warm or was it cold, the level of cooking, was the food cooked to perfection, undercooked or overcooked. As you eat the food, write down exactly what you thought of it. Normally, you're not going to be, for most people who are not going to five-star restaurants and who are going to things like pizza stores or coffee shops and just ordering a muffin. I know that when I go to Israel, the hardest thing for me to adjust to is the difference in culture between even having a paper plate in America where they put your slice of pizza on and this square thing that looks like something I would stick my pantyhose in. And I never understood that they don't have these regular round paper plates. If that's uncomfortable for you, if that's something unusual to you, tell the audience about that. Tell them where they come from, where you come from, again, and why. Make that kind of assessment. Let me tell you about the warm meal. So last week, and this is an example, I was in one of our local restaurants here in Muncie, and it was a very, very cold day. And I went and I had a cup of coffee with a friend of mine, and I ordered a latte. And it was very cold outside. And when I went to drink the latte, I realized it wasn't hot. And it seemed unusual to me, but it was just perfect temperature. And as we're talking, I was drinking it. But for the purposes of this kind of review, I would tell you that if I were taking this out and then driving home my 4 blocks to get to my house, it would have been cold and I would have had to zap it in the microwave. That's the kind of information that your audience needs to hear when you're doing a restaurant review. Consider all these aspects as you eat. Ask questions of the staff. Depends whether or not you have a waitress or if you have somebody you can talk to behind the counter, and how friendly you are with them. Things to try to and discern include: does the waiting staff know their food and ingredients? Do they know where the fish was caught, whether the vegetables are organic? Again, Given your situation and the restaurants that you choose to go to, you may be able to find that information. And sometimes you may have somebody who's working behind the counter that you have difficulty communicating with at all. And is the person friendly who's working behind the counter? I've been to some pizza stores and restaurants here locally where it's kind of move, 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 and they're not friendly at all. Well, if they're not friendly behind the counter and they're just waiting to take the next order, write that down. What kind of response, what kind of engagement is the person behind the counter or the waiter having with you as the customer? Consider the ambiance. Does it seem that people are enjoying themselves? Or is this the restaurant emptying quickly or not filling it up at all? I've been to some restaurants and some eateries where you walk in and there's literally nobody there. And how uncomfortable that is. And is that because of the price? Is it because of the time of day? Let the audience know about all of this. Writing a restaurant review, feel free at any point just to pause and to read this yourself. Although I'm just going to tell you that on this page, what really is important to notice is that you do need to offer some background as to the restaurant. Let us know the location. Where are you coming from? Are you in Brooklyn? Are you in Queens? Are you in Israel? Are you in Los Angeles? Let us know. Are you in out-of-town places? Let us know as much information about the restaurant as you possibly can. Give both pros and cons. Maybe the food didn't taste that good, but the staff was just wonderful. There's a restaurant that we go to when we go to Phoenix, Arizona, and the food is not great, but every time we go, that's the restaurant we go to because the staff is so wonderful, and going there is just like going home, and it's so engaging. The people there are so warm, so we overlook the fact that the food is not great, and that would be important to put into a restaurant review. Name specific entrees. Don't just say, I ordered pizza. If you ordered pizza with mushrooms or vegetables or eggplant on it, let the person know. Evaluate the entire experience. Aside from telling us specifics, overall towards the end, let us know if you had to, and I like to give it a number, and they're in the outside world that's the way they do review restaurants. From, is it a 5-star? Is it a 4-star? Is it a 3-star? I would give that a number so that there is a gauge that you have and say, okay, well, I would consider this to be a 3-star restaurant. I would give it this way we know concretely. Remember I told you how important it is to use words within the physical. Use descriptive adjectives. For example, instead of simply saying that the grilled chicken you ordered was bad, tell why it was bad. If you're ordering sushi, let us know. Don't say it was bad. Say the rice was not moist. It tasted stale, like it was made the day before. Let your personality shine through. No one wants to read a boring, dull review. If you're the person who went to the restaurant taking your 18-and-a-half-month-old child, and she was running up and back and forth, I'm sure you had some kind of wonderful experience in having that happen. Explain. Was it funny? Were other people disturbed? Let us know exactly what your experience is like so that you engage the audience to let us feel that we were in the restaurant sitting next to you. Staying focused. Incorrect. The coffee was delicious, the best food I ever tasted. Correct. The temperature of the coffee was warm enough to drink immediately, but not hot enough to last if I were driving to my office. The reason why it would be incorrect to say again the coffee was delicious was because it doesn't tell me anything about it, really. Incorrect. I love this restaurant because it was an exhilarating experience. I hear that word and I see that word all the time, exhilarating, and I don't know what that means. Correct. A chance to relax and taste foods I don't normally eat was a wonderful break from my routine at the office. Formatting the assignment. Your name, course name, and the assignment name must appear at the top of every page. The page number must appear at the bottom of every page. Assignment title. name of the assignment, example, restaurant review, not the assignment number, example, not assignment 1. Assignment title must be underlined. Assignment title is typed at the center of the first line in the document. Each one of you were giving an entire PowerPoint on how to format your assignments using MLA and non-MLA formatting. Please, please, please refer to that PowerPoint, as it will explain to you exactly what to do. And remember that Word, and it is explained in the formatting of the PowerPoint, that Word itself will format the assignment for you. Please refer to that PowerPoint. Just watch it, scroll down, and you will be able to format your assignment, and there's no excuse not to have a name on a paper. Here is an example of what the heading should look like on your paper. And please refer to the Cooper Smith's Formatting Writing Assignment Guides, slides 4 to 18 for more details. So the following are sample reviews of people who have written essays. 2 of them we've taken from the internet, and one is one of our students who wrote a restaurant review. This one was taken from the internet. You can just pause and read this for yourself, and I think that it's good for you to do that. So pause and read it, and then I'm going to move on to the next slide. And this is another example of a restaurant review that is done well, and you can just pause and read that yourself. The following is a sample student paper from one of our students who wrote a restaurant review, and I think she did a fantastic job. As you read this, we're just going to scroll down for you, and you could just pause it at any moment and then just stop and read it and then move on to the next frame. I just want to say thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on the restaurant review, and I'll see you on the next assignment.